Will this really cost taxpayers over $0.75 billion, as the parliamentary budget officer estimated?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Chrystia Freeland met with reporters yesterday to discuss her year-end meeting with federal, provincial, and territorial finance ministers. As usual, she displayed her mastery of patronizing Canadians, being completely out of touch, and proving how unqualified she is for the job.
Let's take a look.
Now that Bill C-21 has passed in Senate, how much are you budgeting to buy back previously legal firearms and compensate their owners? Will this really cost taxpayers over $0.75 billion, as the parliamentary budget officer estimated?
Thank you for the question, and I'm actually really glad to be asked the question here in my riding of University Rosedale in downtown Toronto. And I'm speaking now as the local MP, but also as a mother of teenagers. I think every single one of us is worried about gun violence. One Canadian being killed by a gun is one Canadian too many. I am really proud of the measures our government is taking to get guns off the street in Canada, and we're going to live up to our commitment to Canadians.
Yeah, I'm sure you're really proud, Freeland. We've talked about this before. I don't own guns. Fox doesn't own guns. And I, personally, I don't understand why, people would want to, have guns for hobbies and stuff like that. Just like people probably don't understand, some of my hobbies. They don't understand why I like building electronics. They may not understand, other Canadians that like doing wood turning. They don't understand, but that's as far as it goes. I don't think that, the government should be looking at removing guns from people unless, and this is the big, unless there is substantial data to show that that is the right course of action. And the problem is the government has been saying, well, yes, there is data to show that, but there hasn't. And this is why there hasn't. Because the violent crime has increased by over 32% since the Liberals took office. That's not because there's been a heck of a lot more guns. They put in more gun legislation to prevent that. So the issue is that they've put in legislation that completely dwarfs our bail system so that violent criminals literally get released the same day. And it's primarily because they are taking a, victim mentality to the criminals. If their legislation was really effective, then in theory, violent crime should be going down, not up, right? Because they're arguing that, well, this legislation is going to reduce the amount of violent crime out there. Well, that's not true. And Canada has some of the toughest gun control legislation in the world. I have friends that have guns, and they've described it to me. And yeah, it's pretty strict. The problem isn't guns. And crime had been decreasing under Stephen Harper significantly. And as soon as the Liberals came in and put in this bail legislation, it just completely reversed that trend. And now there's crime everywhere. Has nothing to do with firearms. So even though I don't have a firearm, I don't understand why some people would want a firearm. I'm not in favor of going and taking them away because the data doesn't show that it needs to do that. Like, here's a chart we've shown before. Crime under Stephen Harper, crime under Justin Trudeau. It's pretty cut and dry, right? Look at the Liberal government versus the Conservative government in terms of just crime. It's policy related. And what this demonstrates is the Liberals do not understand how to eliminate crime. It's almost as if they want crime, which doesn't make any sense, but this is data.
So we've spent quite a bit of time here in the background off camera trying to find actual statistics for how many gun crimes are committed by licensed gun owners with legal weapons. And Stats Canada is mysteriously not providing us with that information. Is it because it's so low it's a statistical anomaly? Is it because they don't collect that information? Is it because they don't want to tell us that information? We have no idea.
What StatsCan does say is that, this is for the year of 2021, of the 8,047 victims of violent crime where a firearm was present, that only accounts for 2.6% of all victims of violent crime. So, while that's terrible, I always talk about the Pareto principle in that when there's violent crime, when there's anything, when you're trying to solve a problem, try to focus on the 80% that makes up your problem. And odds are that's going to be a couple of common causes. So, in my opinion, I'd be looking at the 97.4% of violent crime and saying, what's going on there?
But further to that, I was able to find a National Post article that was dated February the 8th of 2022. And in it, it says that the Toronto Police Deputy Chief Myron Demkew said that of the crime guns last year that investigators could trace, 86% of them were smuggled into Canada from the United States. Therefore, they were illegal firearms. So how is a ban punishing responsible legal gun owners going to prevent gun crime in Canada when the overwhelming majority are coming from the United States?
Right, and the answer is zero, because, again, we have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. We have background checks. We have, so many regulations that gun owners have to follow, which is fine, and gun owners, comply with that. You're not going to resolve this 80+% statistic that the police chief is talking about by banning gun owners from legally holding these guns, because they're illegal. They haven't been procured legally. So it literally does nothing. There's so many problems with this bill, and all this is going to do is remove guns from people that were not a threat in the first place, and it's just going to continue to tick off Canadians across the country.
And beyond that, we haven't even discussed the price tag. $750 million for people who are abiding by the law to essentially steal weapons that may be used for hunting, that may be used for sport, from responsible Canadians.
Remember, everybody, people can't eat, they're skipping meals, but we should be forcing people to sell their guns back to the government
so that they can't hunt for themselves.
There you go.
This is insane.
Hi, Minister Freeland. Siobhan Morris from CTV News. In your home riding, recently Ontario and the City of Toronto reached what they call a new deal when it comes to finances that hinges on the federal government matching some provincial money. Is the federal government prepared to do that when it comes to new subway cars and shelter supports?
Well, first of all, and the Ontario Finance Minister is here with us, let me just congratulate Ontario and the City of Toronto for reaching a deal which both the province and the city described as historic. I agree with that adjective, and it's really, really good to see the city and the province working closely and effectively together. In terms of the federal government, we have a good relationship with both the province and the city, and we're going to keep on working together. It's probably worth my pointing out that no federal government in Canadian history has invested as much in cities overall, and specifically in the City of Toronto, as our government has. The year we formed government, 2015, in that year, the federal government was investing $200 million in Toronto. Since that year, between that year and today, the federal government has invested $5.5 billion directly in the City of Toronto. That is a huge increase. And we are currently investing $8.5 billion directly in public transit capital investments in Toronto, including a massive investment in this riding just down the road from here in the Bloor-Yonge subway station.
So I understand the conversations are going to continue. Toronto's coming up to their budget cycle. Will they have an answer from the federal government, some sort of resolution, even if it's not the amount they've asked for, in time for budget season?
So as I've said, we are investing massively in Toronto. We are glad to be doing that. This is an incredible city. It is the economic engine of Ontario and Canada. I'm proud to represent this riding, and we're glad to continue having constructive conversations with the city.
I love how she just can't answer a question. So, you know, that basically says no.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she's not answering the question directly, the answer is like negative of what would be perceived as good. So if the answer should be, oh yes, absolutely, they'll have that answer, then the truth is no, they won't.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. Personally, I don't think that Toronto should be getting federal funding. That's just me. Federal funding should be for federal programs unless there's a big emergency, and that emergency should be in something like, oh, I don't know, healthcare, stuff like that.
Or like an earthquake or a flood or just something catastrophic.
Yeah, but because a municipal government can't get their finances straight, and that means they're crying and saying, oh well, we need stuff from the federal. I bet there's many other cities that would love $5 billion as well, and they're not getting it. They're not getting anything from the federal government.
Well, and that's the thing. Freeland sounded so proud to be like, oh, we've invested all this money in Toronto. Why are they not self-sufficient that they can't do it themselves? And why are we going further and further into debt as a country to finance this city or that city or whatever?
Well, notice what she said. In 2015, when our government took power, we're so proud that we just started spending like there was no limit. That's basically what she said.
Well, and you know what they say about socialism. Eventually, you run out of other people's money to spend.
Well, that's it. So that was basically the end of the questions that Freeland took. She only took a couple of in English, but it's just astounding every time this lady opens up her mouth. There's nothing that comforts Canadians that she's doing her job properly. And I want to take just a second to remind everybody of the petition that's going on. And it's petition E-4701. At the time we're recording this, it's up to 337,000 signatures. There's still 8 days to go. If you haven't signed it, please sign it. It's a non-binding petition. You've heard a lot of information out there. Oh, well, if it gets to 300,000, it forces a non-confidence vote. No, there's nothing out there like that. This isn't going to force a non-confidence vote. What this will do is it will be waved in the NDP's face come the new year as a very, very strong statement as to how many Canadians are completely disenfranchised with this government. Remember, the average poll that all of the pollsters use takes a sample size of around 2,000 Canadians. This is 337,000 Canadians across the country. Mixed demographics, all over the place. This is a very strong statement to send. And hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully we can get this up to 400, maybe even 500,000 people. Wouldn't that be something?
And don't forget, after you sign the petition, check your email. You'll receive an email from the House of Commons. You have to open that email and then click the link inside that email for your signature to count, or else they won't count it towards that number.
Yeah, so no doubt there's a lot of people that haven't done that, and there should be a lot more. So make sure you do that. So please sign that petition. It will help. It will help. It's not going to force anything, but it may be what pushes the NDP over the edge. when it finally comes to this non-confidence vote, which we are predicting to happen on March 4th, which is a Monday. It's essentially one workday after the next mythical deadline that Jagmeet has worked out with the Liberals of the extension of the supply and confidence agreement to give the Liberals a chance to put in pharmacare, which we don't see how that's going to happen, because the NDP want a full single-payer healthcare pharmacare.
And they've indicated that they will not settle for anything less. They will not settle for a hybrid system. They want government paying for your medication and government only. If you already have private insurance through your work or your spouse's work or through your pension, no, they want to pay for it, and they are not letting you have that insurance anymore.
And there is no way that the Trudeau government is going to do that, because I bet you they are being lobbied up, back, and sideways by all of the insurance companies right now and the pharma companies to make sure that that doesn't happen. So it's going to be an interesting ride, folks.
So make sure you tell your friends, your family, your coworkers, anybody who will listen to you to sign that petition if they haven't already. Let's see if we can get it to 400,000 signatures before Christmas.